Would you like to write your life story in all its epic, awesome glory? Or perhaps pen a memoir of your life thus far? Where do you start? What do you do to make your autobiographical dreams come true? Take some notes now, eager learners. We'll show you how to pen page turners. Listen up, literature lovers, for in this podcast, you'll discover what to put between the covers.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kingdom Builders Academy podcast. So great to be with you guys today, and we've got an exciting topic. This is actually going to be a double episode because Coach Sham, you've got so much to share on this. I hear you've got 10 tips and 10 book recommendations.
I do. Actually, I have 11 book recommendations because I couldn't seem to quite pare it down to 10. But, Zack, you were talking before we started the podcast today. You were talking to our awesome students who are here with us live, and they are in the chat. And you were saying that one of the best ways to learn how to write good marketing copy is to immerse yourself in reading good marketing copy, excellent marketing copy. So we're talking today about how to write your autobiography. And honestly, if you're going to write anything, there are going to be autobiographical elements in it. Even if it's fiction, you're going to draw on your own life story to kind of flesh out characters and so on. And the thing that I want for God's people, and I believe that I speak by the Spirit of God on this, what I want and what I believe the Spirit of God wants for His people is that we would all demonstrate excellence in the earth, that we would possess the positions of influence, that we would get the skills required that are respected in the ministry and respected in the marketplace, that we would elevate everything else around us, that we would elevate the culture by our experience of living life out loud as Christians. And so I'm really excited about this topic because I feel that too many of God's people really don't give their very best when they write a book. I feel like a lot of people do it as a labor of love, but there are also a lot of people who do it just to get a book out there. And no doubt there is value in having a book out there, but honestly, I think that it's better not to write a book unless it's going to be a really great book. So we want to teach you today how to write really excellent, epic autobiographies that not just your family and friends will buy because they know you, or not just to leave a legacy for your children or grandchildren and write about your life story, but to really impact the masses with the messages that have come out of your experiences. And I think that is really a great thing to do. So Zachary, we're talking today about autobiographies, and I'm a big lover of the whole biographical genre. I love autobiographies and I love biographies, but I say they're the same genre because they essentially are. And I know that you've read a number of biographies that you really love and a couple of autobiographies. Well, I brought 10 to show you today, actually 11. I have a bonus for part one.
Don't tell again.
But maybe you can pop in before I share some of these and tell us some of your favorites and what you've kind of gleaned from them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love about biographies and autobiographies, two things, one is that they can actually be kind of easy reading, for us who read nonfiction and business books or theology books. Those can be a little heavier, right? You find yourself kind of stopping to think, and it's a little slower of a read. Biographies, I actually really enjoy reading biographies, partly because they're very narrative based, so they're kind of easier to read. But the big thing that I actually get from biographies, probably even more than the specific lessons learned, like we can learn from other people's lives, we can learn from other people's experiences, but probably the biggest reason that I come back to biographies is for the inspiration factor. it's inspirational to see people's journeys and to see the battles they faced and the mountains they climbed and the adversity they overcame and the strengths that they leaned into. And I do it for the inspiration factor, probably more than anything.
Well, what's a couple of biographies or autobiographies that have really kind of stood out?
Yeah, I think the ones that I find myself reading most are U.S. presidents and entrepreneurs. Like those are the ones that I find the most interesting. So George Washington, I think A Life by Ron Chernow is great. And another thing that you get from reading biographies, Coach Dan, kind of like you were talking about immersing yourself in good copy, is good literature, good writing. Like the way that a super successful, esteemed biographer like Ron Chernow writes, it's poetic, right? It's masterful. So just to, again, like kind of, that it's kind of like they say that, you are the combination of your 5 closest friends, right? Because you just put yourself in an environment, it kind of gets on you. It's the same with what we consume. It's the same with what we watch. It's the same with what we read. So I enjoy actually going to that kind of higher level, somewhat intellectually or just in what I'm consuming, because it kind of gets on you. You start to, see things and hear things and then say things in a way that you've kind of been incubated in. So I like reading Ron Chernow's Washington. What else? I've read Warren Buffett's biography, and actually a really good one. I didn't pick this one up for a long time, but Shoe Dog is really good, about Phil Knight, the inventor of an entrepreneur who started Nike. That's a great one. It's just really great storytelling, a really like kind of fun story. I wasn't like really attracted to it at all at first, but when I finally picked it up, it was one of my favorite entrepreneur biographies.
Yeah, that's a blockbuster bestseller too. All right, well, I brought 10. Actually, I said 11. I brought 11 for you, and I want to show them to you, and I want to recommend that before you write a single word of your autobiography, that you read half of these at least. They're all extremely well written, and I could have gone back in the time machine and picked a few and recommended them from, actually, I do have one that is, it's not posthumous. It was written while he was alive, but one who is not on the planet anymore. But everybody else that I'm recommending are contemporaries. And I love those biographies and autobiographies of people who were 100, 200, 500 years ago, going back to the early church, St. Augustine, and so on. I love those. But for our purposes today, I want to give you some more contemporary models, because you're going to be writing a contemporary book about your life. So I want to give you some examples to look to. Now, I want to just say that most of these that I'm recommending to you are survivor stories. And so they can be a little bit gritty, and that's okay. That is perfectly okay. Some of them have a nice little surprise, at least for me, in it, that the author comes to Christ at some point in some of these books. But I'm going to go ahead and show them to you one by one, although I want you to know, in full disclosure, that I ordered these off of Amazon, and I did not read them with my eyeballs. I read them with my ears. So I like audiobooks. So even though I'm holding up the covers for you, a lot of these, if you listen to audiobooks, are actually read by the authors, and that's a lot of fun too. And so beginning with this first one, if you get it on audiobook, you will see that it is read by the author, and this one is called I'm Glad My Mom Died. I'm Glad My Mom Died, which is a very kind of interesting title, obviously. And this book is hilarious, and it's also heartbreaking. It's a memoir by Jeanette McCurdy, who was a former child actor, and it talks about her eating disorders, addictions, a complicated relationship with her manipulative mother, and how she took control back of her life. super, super well written, as are all of the books that I'm going to recommend to you. Okay, the next one that I'm going to recommend is called My Girls, and this is by Todd Fisher, who is the brother of Carrie Fisher, best known as Princess Leia from the Star Wars series, and his mother is the unsinkable Debbie Reynolds. And this is really just such an excellent book. Again, very well written. I thought one of the most interesting parts of the book was how Debbie Reynolds was on really the verge of total bankruptcy, but she had been sage enough to buy costumes when they had gone on sale from, I guess, Universal or something was getting rid of its costume and props collection. And she bought it for a song, like $5,000 or something, and ended up selling it off for millions. And that's how she ended up sustaining herself. And I thought that whole thing was very, very interesting. Okay, book number 3. This one is by Trevor Noah, the South African comedian, and it's about his childhood growing up born of an illegal interracial relationship during the apartheid era. Super, super funny, and also his hustle is quite commendable. Like, this guy really knew how to get up out of the dirt, come out from nothing. Another very excellent one also. I don't know, it's probably still on the bestseller list after several years. Okay, number 4 is called Troublemaker. Any of you who ever watched King of Queens might recognize the author, Leah Remini, and this one is about very fascinating account of her subtitle says it all: surviving Hollywood and Scientology. So I also find reading about cults kind of interesting too for some reason, but this next one kind of comes out of that same sort of path of getting out of a dirt poor Mormon survivalist family. This one also a blockbuster bestseller called Educated by Tara Westover. And this one is really just shocking. The details of her life are shocking. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I love about autobiography and about biography is I enjoy the experience of sort of being immersed in a life that I will never know about otherwise. Like, I won't know what it's like to grow up as a child actor, or I won't know what it's like to grow up in Scientology, but it gives you the experience of what it was like to enter somebody else's world, and I find that very educational. All right, the next one I'm going to recommend is a biography, okay? So it's not written by the person that it's about, but it is so super well written and super inspiring. This is probably, gosh, they're all so good, but this is a favorite for sure. It's called Unbroken, and Unbroken is the story of Louis Zamperini, who was an Olympic runner, and he ended up being in World War II in a plane crash, and he still, I believe, to this day, broke the record for the most time on the open sea. I believe it was somewhere around 96 days. And then it was like from the frying pan to the fire. He ended up being imprisoned in a Japanese prison camp, and he had a nemesis who was a guard in the camp. And it follows the story, actually, of what happened. Most of the book is about this experience of him being in World War II, but it goes on to follow what happened both to his tormentor, the Japanese prison guard, and what happened to him. He had some supernatural experiences. The accounts of him on the open ocean are riveting, like the kind of stuff that you will never forget. You read it and you will never forget it. But he had some angelic encounters that he describes, Fabulous, fabulous book. The next one is also a biography. And again, comes out of the World War II era and is phenomenal. Now, it is a thick book, but if you listen to it as an audio book, it has a little bit of a slow start, but man, once you get into it, you never want it to end. So this is Beneath a Scarlet Sky by Mark Sullivan, and it's the main character of the book. This is a real life book. Okay, it's not fictional, although it kind of reads like fiction. Is Layla, and he wants nothing to do with the war or the Nazis. He's a normal Italian teenager, and in an attempt to protect him, Pino's parents force him to enlist as a German soldier at the tender age of 18, where he ends up becoming a spy and the personal driver for Adolf Hitler's left-hand man in Italy, General Hans Lyers. Unbelievable, full of twists and turns, super, super well written. Okay, I could not leave this book off of the list. This book, now we're rounding the bend at number 8, because this is a survivor story, which a lot of Christians, the Bible says, Jesus said that it is not the healthy that need a physician, right? So a lot of people who want to write autobiographies, who are believers, came out of some really horrific situations of abuse and addiction and so on. So this one really represents that category, I think, of addiction, probably better than anything that I've ever read. It's shocking in its grittiness, but it's very effective and super, super well written, like all the books that I'm recommending. So this one, number 8, is The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. And it's about how the author got unstuck from an addictive cycle of drink, make horrible decisions, have a hangover, repeat. Excellent, excellent book. All right. Number nine, this is the second most recent book that I've read. Very, very good. New York Times bestseller, The Many Lives of Mama Love. And the subtitle, I think, does a good job of describing what the book's about. It's a memoir of lying, stealing, writing, and healing. Soccer mom Laura Love Hardin, who is the author, has been hiding a shady secret. She is funding her heroin addiction by stealing her neighbor's credit cards. Laura is convicted of 32 felonies and is sent to prison. When she's released, she reinvents herself as a ghostwriter and ends up writing for the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, among others. Super well written. And she also, I read this book before I really knew her story, but the last book on the list is by Anthony Ray Hinton. It's called The Sun Does Shine, and it's a memoir of his wrongful imprisonment, serving 30 years on death row for 3 murders he did not commit. And the guy is a tremendous Christian man, and was even before he was convicted. He grew up in a Christian home, and this one was actually co-written, ghost-written a little bit by Laura Love Hardin. This one was on the Oprah's Book Club selection, another great blockbuster bestseller. Okay, so I am going to leave you with this final exhortation, is do not write your autobiography until you read at least half of these books. You need to know what a good autobiography looks like and sounds like so that you can replicate that, because I don't want your book to be boring. I don't want your book to be putting a pretty picture on it. I want your book to sing and dance. I want it to be beautiful and poetic. And can I tell you something? Here's the thing that we so often try to do, is we try to position ourselves in a light that makes us look good, and that's human nature. But can I tell you that shameless self-disclosure is a cash cow? People love a comeback story, and they want to see, boom, 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 how bad you got beat up before you came back up. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to put it all out there, but do it in a beautiful, pretty, poetic way, please, so that we're going to enjoy reading it. All right, Zack, I'll leave you with the last words for part 1. Then in part 2, we're going to talk about what makes for a great autobiography.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to part 2 and hear your top 10 tips on writing it, but I love it. And I think so many of our listeners, go ahead, Coach Tam.
I'm sorry, I forgot our bonus book. I'm reading this right now. When I say I'm reading it again, I'm listening to it. It's read by the author. Super good. Like things that I had no idea that my friend, Reinhard Bonnke, who is now in eternity, I had no idea about his childhood, that he grew up at the end of World War II, and he was actually with his mother and his 5 siblings in a refugee camp. And his dad was in the German army. He never enrolled in the Nazi party. He was a Christian, and really didn't even know to any great extent what was going on in Germany. But he fought with the Germans. So this is that is my other son. But this is Living a Life of Fire by Reinhard Bonnke, and this one you must listen to the audiobook, because he reads it and he's got that beautiful,
an awesome voice.
Very, very powerful book.
Love it, Coach Tam. Yeah, excellent episode. Can't wait to dive into the next one. The one thing that stuck out to me as you were reading those titles and showing those covers, actually kind of double lesson. Like, yeah, we want to immerse ourselves in the literature and the writing so that we can write better. But another thing is, like, look at those covers. Those all looked like best-selling books.
Yeah.
And one of them that I think may resonate for a lot of people telling their stories of overcoming tragedies and traumas and difficulties and stepping into a brighter life was that one that was The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober. Is that the title?
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear that title, when you see it and when you see the cover, it looks like a bestseller, right? And so, like, that's part of it too, is that, like, don't just immerse yourself in the writing and the reading and the listening of these books, but also look at the covers, look at the titles, because if you can pick up on that piece of it too, people do judge books by covers. People do judge the book by the title. So have a title and a cover that sing too, along with your story on the inside. So love this episode. Thanks for sharing, Coach Tam. Can't wait to dive into the next episode on your tips on writing your autobiography.